I have spent the past decade trying to make the perfect Rapunzel costume. I have made at least 4 wigs, and I believe it's now at 5 or 6 costumes, of which one of them is actually a tutorial on the channel. Check that out if you're so interested. And I know perfection does not exist, but I'm going to get as close as I possibly can because this is my favorite character ever. I gotta do her justice. I gotta give her everything that I got. And so, today I'm going to be making what should be the perfect Rapunzel wig. To make the perfect Rapunzel wig, I have identified 5 areas of which we must address. Let's jump into it. Number 1, volume. Rapunzel has 70 feet of hair according to the back of the DVD case, and 70 feet of hair bundled up into about 6 feet of hair is a lot of freaking volume and a lot of freaking weight, and my neck and my back cannot handle that. So we need to figure out how to get tons of volume and tons of length for not a lot of weight. Second, braid connection. Most of the wigs that I have seen come in 2 pieces, the braided tail and the base wig, of which there is a connection at the back nape of the neck. Now I've seen a few different types of connections: hooks, Velcro, snaps, and glue. All of those make me a little bit nervous because they can all come undone. And if they come undone, the kids are going to clock you as a phony, and that's going to ruin the magic, and we are not ruining magic in my tower. So, we need to determine how to make the braid removable, but also make sure it stays on while performing. We also need to figure out how to get all of that hair to stay on the shoulder because we can't have it falling down forward and coming undone. We can't have it falling behind us and letting kids pull on it. And we can't have our arm in this position forever to hold it on our shoulders. So there needs to be some sort of a locking system to hold the braid to the shoulder and also not be seen. And I think I have figured that out. Next, braid management. We know Rapunzel brushed and brushed and brushed her hair every single day for 18 years, but I can barely be bothered to brush mine once a week. So I sure as heck am not going to be brushing that hair every time I wear it. So we need to figure out how to be able to go running and racing and dancing and chasing without having the hair come undone every time, nor need a major restyle every time. Next up, hiding the hairline. As somebody who has a butt ton of hair, it is already difficult for me to get all of this under a wig and not have my hairline show, but it's especially difficult in Rapunzel because she has a bit of an updo, and nothing makes a kid not believe in you more than being able to clock your hairline. And then once you put the braid into the back, that makes it even more noticeable because it can push it up and expose your hairline. So we're going to figure out how to make sure that the hairline at the back of our neck is always hidden. Last but not least is cost. I have already spent way too much money trying to figure out how to make the last 4 versions. This one needs to be very cost effective to not only make, but maintain. So we're going to figure out how to make this a cost effective wig. And if you're watching this video, I assume that's your priority too, to which I say you've got great taste and you should keep on watching because we're going to do just that. But if you find this video helpful and you want to support the channel, consider supporting my jewelry line. This past year, I started my jewelry line, which is inspired by all things vintage, crafts, and fantasy, and the first being the corset necklace and earrings. These are inspired by my love of corsetry. They are 18 karat gold plated, and they are incredibly lightweight and super freaking cute if I do say so myself. And I think they would look amazing on you. Plus, it's like we all have friendship bracelets and we're like a little corset gang. So if you're interested in getting your own set, you can get the link to them in the description box down below. I also just released them in silver. So with that, let's get started. So this is my Rapunzel wig. This is the base of it. And I did use her a couple weeks ago, so she's a little loosey-goosey, but still looking pretty good. My favorite things about this wig is primarily the color. I looked high and low for the right color. I really wanted a yellowy gold blonde instead of the cool toned blue or gray blondes that are out there. And I wanted it to be a little richer instead of the like bleach blondes. And this one was hard to find. I had to go through a couple rounds of ordering on Amazon before I found this one. So I will link the listing to this one. However, be forewarned, I have tried to order this a couple times and have been sent the wrong blonde color. But just be aware and give yourself ample time if you do order. I love the bangs. The bangs are something that are hard to nail, but I'll show you how to cut them. The things I'm going to change on this wig is primarily the parting in the back here. As you can see, I have it all going smooth down, which isn't bad, but I think we can do better, especially to serve as a better way to get the braid tail into here. And I have a better way of securing all of these braids when they go up into each other, so I'll show you that later as well. As you can see, I have a lot of draping at the side here to hide my hairline, but I think we can improve that some more, as well as make it easier to get the tail in underneath without pushing this up too much. So that is the base wig. Here's my current tail. It is pretty good. It has held up pretty well. The ends here you can see get a little ragged, and she does need a cleanup after my last wear, but this holds up quite nicely to all my running and dancing and stuff. What I have here is a twill tape base with jumbo braid latch hooked on. Now it does create a weird bit of bulk here at the top, and so we're going to use that technique to build out the next braid, but we're going to improve upon it. The next thing that I liked is I put a piece of tulle over the entire length of it to stop it from getting tangled or caught on costumes or caught on kids, and this has worked really well, so we're going to do that some more. And the loose bit of hair at the end is actually a separate wig that goes around the base of the jumbo braid tail. And this gives it that movement to make it look like it's all one piece of hair and it's really loose. But that means I only have to worry about restyling this bottom piece, which is really just brushing it out and occasionally giving it a steam. However, I think we can make the connection up here better and make the bow and everything prettier. With that, we have to unfortunately take down the styling of this wig, which sucks because I spent like 4 hours making her so nice. And to make things just a little bit more complicated, I have exactly 1 week to get this project done because I will be performing for the California Watermelon Festival, where I will be seeing hundreds, if not maybe 1,000 kids, and I want to make sure that the magic is perfect. So let's jump into the build plan. My base wig is pretty good, but I will need some more wefts in the back, so I'm going to take apart a second wig and sew those wefts into the very back of the head of my first wig. I'll also sew some wefts into the back side of the nape of the neck. That way my hairline can be hidden, as well as the edge of the wig cap. I plan to use the crossover parting that is used in the Parks wigs. That way we can hide all of the wefts without having to do too much extra work. This time, instead of using 1 twill tape for the braid, I'm going to use 3. I'm going to continue with my method of latch hooking on the jumbo braid hair, but putting it into 3 different tapes should make it easier to manage. I'm going to use 80-inch long jumbo braid as well to make sure we can really get that length. And this time, instead of just 1 tulle tube to keep all the flyaways managed, I'm going to use 3 tubes that will go onto each individual strand of the braid to help maintain and manage the braid. Once all of the hair has been latch hooked onto the twill tape, I'm going to attach those to some sort of base connector. And then onto the base connector, I'm going to add some extra wefts to function as mini braids that will also serve the purpose of hiding the base connector when it's clipped into the back of the wig. Then I'm going to braid everything together. To make the bottom of the braid tail look pretty, I'll recycle my old braid tail extension, which is just a piece of twill tape with some nice extensions sewn on, but this time I'm going to take the bow and change it to a braid that will get wrapped around to hide all of the hardware. Then I'll use some lobster claw clasps and some D-rings to connect the braid tail to the back nape of the wig. Lastly, I'll make a braid pillow using a buttonhole and button system to connect the braid tail to the bodice. That way it all stays in place. So let's get to building. Good morning. It is the next day. So I ended up spending the rest of the night last night destroying the wig, deconstructing it. So now I have this lovely bundle of hair that I'm going to put into the base wig. Now when you go to sew wefts on a wig, you really want to make sure you have a nice wig block so that you can really secure the wig down and stretch it out as much as possible. So get yourself a nice wig block. I have one linked in my Amazon shop down below. Now, if you are feeling let's say, the need for speed, you could glue these wefts on. However, I always regret when I use glue. I really prefer to sew in the wefts because then I know that I can take it down and it's not going to destroy anything, and I can make changes as I need. Which now I'm also going to weave some of that jumbo braid into the back of the wig here. There's some elastic straps along the side of this wig that are perfect for looping these on. Just take a quick note of this. We'll go over the whole latch hooking of the hair in. But the reason I'm putting some jumbo braid in the sides is the jumbo braid is really good at holding a braid and adding volume, which is exactly what we need at the sides of this wig. So I just added enough to go from ear to the bottom of the nape. And last but not least, I measured out exactly how long I needed my twill tape to be and cut 3 of them. Good morning, friends. So as you can see, I have 2 of the tails done. But we're going to make the 3rd one today because I have exactly 1 week to finish everything on this costume, and I still have to put the skirt back together. So I started hanging this all up and I forgot that I need to finish off the end of the twill tape here. So I'm going to just do a double rolled hem and then I'll get it back up. Edge is rolled over, so I'm going to hang it back up. And now we get to start the hair. The thing about the hair is this hair does not like to be pulled apart very easily, so you have to use a very technical method to separate it. So let me show you that. When you're working with this stuff, you want to be really ginger because it can tangle very easily. There's a little rubber band here in the center that holds the hair in the very middle. So this hair is technically 80 inches long, but we're going to do it folded in half so that we can crochet it into the twill tape. You're going to take out the rubber band very carefully, but make sure you hold on to the center here. And then you can see I have a hook right over there. I'm going to put it on the hook to hold on to it. But when you are separating, you're going to want to get, I'm right here. My face is right here. Okay, so when you grab it, see here, I'm just going to grab like this much. Come on, focus on me. My camera broke and this one's not as good, so sorry for the focusing issues. Okay, I'm grabbing pretty small pieces. It's like maybe 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch flat. And then you're gonna hold on to the center of your piece, hold on to the center of the rest of the bundle. Then you're gonna slowly pull it apart. You can see it gets very spidery. Once you get to the width of both of your arms out, this is where the super technical part is going to come in. You're going to put your foot right between and separate it. So now we have our 2 little pieces, and I would recommend having like a back of a chair or something to hang these onto. I'm just going to put some push pins in my wall and hang them up on there. I usually do about 3 at a time because otherwise there's a chance of them getting tangled together. Get it? Tangled? Okay, come closer so you can see what's going on. So we're going to start at the bottom of the twill tape and work our way up. And to get the hair onto the twill tape, you're going to need one of these. This is a crochet hook, and let me show you what you're going to do. Okay, so here we have the twill tape. You're going to put the latch here, down. You're going to go in to the twill tape, bring it around. Okay, first piece of hair. This way, you're going to find the very center and put it into the hook like so. You're going to close the latch and then pull it through there and then take it off. Now you're going to put your fingers through the loop and you're going to very carefully grab all the hair, pull it through and tighten it right like that. And then we have this cute little knot that's going to hold it tight. We're going to keep going all the way up. Keep your knots on the same side as well. Center one, we're going to flip around. I'm going to go about 1/2 inch above, maybe 1 inch above. Going to go through. I'm going to grab our hair, put it on, close the latch, pull it through. There you can see the hair's through the center. We're going to go back through about a 1/4 inch above where we looped the hair through. I like to slide the crochet hook along my finger to make sure I don't catch any of the hairs. Then I go through, grab it, pull taut so that the hair stays on the hook. Flip the latch, pull the loop through, put your finger through the loop, grab all the loose hair, pull it up and through, and then tighten the knot. And there we go, we have very smooth on the back side and a nice tight knot on the front side. So that's the basics of it. I'm gonna loop a handful on and then I'll check in with you in a few moments. So I did about 6 here, and you could fill in all the way if you wanted to, but that's gonna make the bottom really bulky because you're just having layer upon layer upon layer. Whereas if we spread the layers out, you're gonna get an even volume through it. So I skipped about 6, and then I'm gonna add probably about 6 more here, and then I'm gonna pack a bunch at the top so that the top has enough volume as well. Cool, so the 3 braids are done. Now I need to make the tube netting for this one and attach everything to the base that will then attach to the back of the wig. I'm gonna give this one a trim up after. One thing that I forgot to do on the other 2 is to steam the knots. This hair is kind of a thermoplastic, so if you steam it and lock in those knots, they'll stay really tight and be less prone to coming out if you have to brush the piece. So I'm gonna take this one and steam it real quick and then undo the other 2 and give them a quick steam. It feels like the original park braid right now, but it doesn't seem too heavy. I made these little tulle tubes, but they're not straight, but then again, neither am I. So I need to recut these on the straight grain because if I don't, they have this like twist to them that kind of gives away that there's netting over the braid. So I'm gonna remake these and then we will bag up the braid. Look at, you can see what a difference putting the tubes around them make. It just makes it look like such a rope of hair, which frankly is what she has, and contains all those flyaways, but you can still see like the strands of hair inside of it. So let's bag up the last braid. Here you can see well, probably can't see very well because it's practically invisible, but I made a little tube out of the tulle. And I'm gonna find the nice edge. Now I'm just gonna take 2 fingers and I'm gonna start gathering it up my fingers. The seam allowance is on the outside, and so we're going to flip it to the inside, but also put the braid in all at the same time. Okay, so now I've got it like a little scrunchie on my finger. Now I'm gonna give the braid just a little brush out. Now it would be a huge pain in the ass if we were to go from the bottom up. And so we're gonna start top down. That's why I haven't attached it to the kind of braid harness yet. And now that I've got the little tulle tube on my hand, I'm gonna actually pinch the end of the tulle tube and the twill tape between those 2 fingers and pull all the rest over. This feels very inappropriate, but I'm just gonna push the rest down and bundle up all that hair. Now I'm gonna open up the top of the tube, fish out that twill tape, and keep the tulle right at the top of it. And there we go, we have a little tube of hair and everything just looks so nice and neat, and it's got a little shine to it. Look at how much nicer it is to braid. Look at that! All right, so I have extra tube here, but I think I'm gonna leave it and tie it all together. That way these are just kept really nice and clean. And then when I put the loose part of the braid extension on, then it's gonna hide all of this. But look at that! Ah, she's so chunky! I have this 60-inch wig that I got back when I did my first version of her, and I bought this intending to bulk it out, but the hair is so shiny that I just didn't like the way it looked. So what I have done is plucked out a couple wefts that I'm going to use for just the mini braid. Oof, This is the reason I don't want to work with bunches and bunches of loose hair and prefer to keep the tails kind of bundled up. It's just trying to separate all this is such a pain. Trying to keep it brushed out and tangle free is not easy. So there we have 3 wefts. That's gonna make a decent sized mini braid. I think I might actually double it. And then I'll do 2 of these. So I'll do 2 bundles of 6. So there'll be 2 mini braids going through the big braid. So this is the back of the wig, and I need to make the extension that the braid is going to sit on so that I can then hook it to the back of the braid. And this nape of the neck here is, let's see how wide, about 4 inches wide. So I'm going to make about a 3-inch wide sort of, I don't know what you call it, just a piece, connector piece that everything is going to get attached to. So it'll probably look something like that. And the 3 pieces of twill tape are going to attach to here. And I'm going to put the wefts from the mini braids over top here. So then that way, when it all gets hooked in together, you'll just see the mini braids hair. You won't even see the base piece. I think I'm going to sew the wefts on here. Spent like 30 or 45 minutes just brushing this freaking tail. And now I feel a cold coming on, so I am in my robe. Please forgive me, but I'm cold now. But I'm determined to get 90% of this done today. If I can get just the tail built and everything assembled, then I can style the wig later this week. One recommendation, if you do build this, is when you get to this point, pre-braid all your wefts together so that when you're sewing it, it doesn't get all tangled and force you to spend 45 minutes untangling it like I did. So that being said, this is, I'd say 95% untangled. So because I sewed those first few wefts going the opposite direction, now this hair is flipping over, but it's also just flipping out. So we're going to steam this so it lays nice, and that way when this gets clipped into the back of the wig, if you happen to see it, everything's hidden, so nothing giving away the magic. So let's get the steamer going and flatten this out. Alright, this has been steamed and cooled. We're going to split this into 2 little braids and finish off nicely with some little rubber bands. All right, let's steam these braids and then we can start thinking about how to attach the rest of the tail. I think I know how this needs to attach, but I'm gonna play around with it for a little bit. I've got my, we'll call it a yoke. I've got my yoke here and my 3 twill tapes plus the tulle, and I'm going to sew it as close to the seam allowance line on the opposite side of the placket. I'm gonna sew right over it along the seam allowance line, right like that. So I'll have 1, 2, 3. Let me go do that. I'll be right back. So I fucked up. I just cut all this twill tape off the top where I connected it to the yoke, and I realized why I had all this excess, and it's because most of this was supposed to get hair as well, so that the twill tape came down to about my chest. A little bit short, but roughly there. Now the twill tape comes to about here, which means I can only add my braid pillow to the top of my shoulder and the back, whereas I really wanted it to sit on the front of my shoulder too. I'm not sure how I can fix this without starting over, which I can't start over, so I'm gonna take a coffee break and think about this. I don't really have any choice at this point, so I'm just gonna keep going, and maybe another day I will take it apart and move it up. But the principle still applies. It'll still hold pretty tight. I just wanted a little more security to the front shoulder. So this, my friends, is why we stop working when we feel sick, because then we get into the sick fog and we make silly mistakes. So that being said, I am intending to use this kind of a closure. Here at the bottom is going to go on the tail, and then the rest of this is going to go embedded in the wig. And because it's completely enclosed and it's a fairly strong clasp, it's not going to come off, it's not going to pop out, and it gives it a little bit of wiggle, which is nice when you're moving around and stuff. So I'm going to sew the D-ring onto the tail right meow. Actually, before we can do that, we have to sew up the yoke. So I just folded the seam allowances in, and right now it's pinned, but I'm just going to go along the edge and stitch that up. So let's go do that. It'll still work if I have time before the show. Then I might go back in, sew the end of the twill tape longer with an extension, and then weave in more hair. It's perfectly fine for now. I'm just being a perfectionist. So I'll see what I get done tomorrow and check back in with you guys. Good night. Monday, I had basically no energy. I was feeling so dead, but I knew that my deadline was fast approaching, so I tried to get a little something done. And that something was watching some RuPaul's Drag Race and sewing in the wefts along the side of the neck. Here you can see I have that jumbo braid that has been looped onto the elastic along the side of the wig, and then I just steamed it down to lock those knots in place. And then I measure how long I need my wefts to be to go along the nape of the neck. And remember, it's going to go on the inside, so that way when we style the wig, it looks like the hair is coming out of our head and we don't see any of the wig cap. So there's one side without the wefts, and you can see all the knots. And here's the side with the wefts, and you can only see it if I'm pulling away at it. It looks so much better, it looks so much more realistic. Now this is really crappy footage, but I effectively measured how long I needed the piece to be, and then just sewed a clump of wefts together, and then sewed that clump of wefts onto the inside, just using whip stitches. It does not have to be anything fancy. So I got really sick, and that definitely contributed to some of the mistakes I made. But today is Tuesday. The performance is Saturday and Sunday, so I've got just a couple days left to get everything done. The wig I managed to finish yesterday as well, at least the base of it, and it's looking really good. Tomorrow I think I will style the base wig. Tonight I'm going to finish the skirt and hopefully brush out the loose extension for the braid. So let's take care of that, and I will check in with you tomorrow to see what I have left to do. It is now Thursday, and I have spent the last 2 evenings working on the skirt behind me. There you can see her. I'm not going to include much of that footage because I will have a tutorial coming for the entire rest of the costume later this year, which means all that's left is to finish the braid extension here. I need to brush this out, add more hair, and finish the closure up top. That will be our main task tonight. But I managed to take the loose tail extension and pin it to my wig block, give it a steam and a brush and a nice fresh curl, and she was looking pretty good. The next day I began cleaning up the old extension. Here you can see that it's just rows and rows of wefts sewn onto a long piece of twill tape. But I was using bobby pins to keep it in the old braid, which was fine, but we can do better. So I added some little wig clips and sewed them onto the ends and one in the center. Then I took some jumbo braid and created effectively a weft with some hot glue. If you have sensitive fingers, just use some regular wefts. Then I brushed it out and braided it and created a cute little micro braid that I then steamed and sewed onto the inside edge of the tail extension. Then I sewed one last little comb to the inside there. And here you can see it hooks in and wraps round and round and round. And then you take the braid and wrap that around the top. Here I did use a couple bobby pins to hold the braid in place, but it looks so much better, so much cuter, and really just finishes it off nicely. From there I put the costume on my mannequin and put the braid tail over top. I put some safety pins in the tail to denote where the twill tape was, and then marked where that lined up on the costume with some safety pins. I only needed about 3 buttons on this piece, so I cut 2 pieces of twill that were long enough to go over top all 3 buttons. Then I marked the buttonholes and sewed them onto one piece of the twill tape. From there I layered the other piece of twill tape on top and sewed them end to end. Then I flipped them over, top stitched the ends, and then sewed a quick running stitch between each of the buttonholes. And here you can see it creates 3 little pockets between which the buttons are going to go. Then I began searching for the twill tape inside of each of the braid pieces and used some long floral pins to fish it up to the top till I could see it. I aligned the end of my braid pillow with the end of my twill tape on the braid and pinned everything down so that I could begin sewing the twill tape to the braid pillow. I made sure to only go through the braid pillow that did not have the buttonholes in it. That way the buttonholes could move kind of freely and I could get my fingers in there to latch everything up. Then I tried everything on and oh my gosh, it worked so well. I'm so happy with it. Yay! So all that's left to do now is to, well, you can't see it, but style the base wig here under my arm and add the flowers. Then call it a night and get some sleep because I did not do that last night. Alright, so we're going to do take 2 on styling the wig because it's kind of hard to make it so you can see what I'm doing with just a locked off camera. So let's give a big thank you to Mr. Blackwell for being our steady camera today. So of course what we need to do is pin the wig to the wig head. You want to find the center seam here and lay it on our wig block. And I'm going to bring it all the way forward as best that I can. Stick a single pin in it just to cement it for now. Go ahead and find your ear tabs here and you want to pin not in the lace but in the elastic right there. And you're going to stretch that forward and pin through it. Don't use T-pins. T-pins will rip out the hair. You want to use these gem pins or pearl pins. Just going to take a stick and pin up all the hair. And then we're going to take the back of the wig. You can see that there's like a little tab that comes down for the nape of the neck. Oh, stray bobby pin or hairpin. And we're going to stretch this as far down as possible. You're going to put your pin in, hook like away from the wig, then flip it and push up. This is going to make sure that it really locks down and that anytime you're pulling on it, the pin doesn't rip out. Cool. And you can see actually the hooks that I have. So the most important part of this wig is how you part the back of the head. So here we can see we have kind of a part already forming and we just are going to lock off that section. You're going to want these little claw clips and a lot of them because this is going to make our life so much easier when we go to braid. Now already you can see that we've got a layer forming here and you might have to play with your wig and see where you want to do your parting, but you kind of want to stay in like the back third of the wig. So if this is a third, this is a third, this is a third, we're going to be parting from this column here. And so you're going to take a rat tail comb going from 1/3, kind of going down at like a 20-degree angle and pulling the hair over. So I'm only grabbing maybe 3 inches. So it's like 1 inch here, 3 inches there. We're going to pull that over to the one side along with the rest of that top layer. And I like to go ahead and smooth it ahead of time because it's going to make our job so much easier when we go to braid it. Just make sure you're being gentle because we do have that Kanekalon braid in there. And since it's not sewn in, it pulls out easier. So we're only going to do like maybe 5 back and forths. So once again, starting from that third, going over down maybe 3 inches. And I can already tell that I'm seeing some wefts here and here. So I'm going to grab a little bit more. And it's a good idea to clip your pieces kind of to the far side so you can see how each layer is going to drape and how it's going to hide. You'll also want to do this as you are adding in wefts to your wig, if you have to add in wefts, because this will show you where you need to add in more in case you have any little blank spots. And then I think it's probably one more. Yeah, we're getting to my clips here. Yeah, we're just going to take this last one in its entirety and pull it over. And we want to make sure the clips are exposed so that we can easily get the braid tail in there. So there we go. We've got the majority of our parts done. So you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's kind of that one there. The first side of the braid is hard to do, but once you have it done, the other side goes so much faster. Next, we're going to individually section off our pieces that were clipped to the previous piece, so that way we can start working with it. If you have a lace front, you may want to pin along the lace line just so it doesn't pull back as we're working with it. So I'm just going to put a couple pearl pins along there just to hold it down. You technically want to put twill tape over it so it doesn't rip out, but we're not going to be too harsh on it. And the thing I found this weekend was you want the braid to start behind the ear so that you get the right drape. If you want to do sideburns, pull those out now and pin them away. Mine are curled, so they just kind of stick out of the way. Okay, so I've grabbed this section just behind the sideburn ear tab, and I'm going to start my braid. The thing is, you want to stay towards the face of your wig. The further you move back like this, the tighter your braid is going to get along the hairline, and we want a lot of drape along the hairline to hide our own hairline. So stay towards the front of your wig. Okay, so we're going to make just a traditional braid. Nothing fancy, nothing too difficult. Just a light. I'm just going to begin by crossing the outside piece in. Alright, now here's where we're going to do a French braid. So, that first section that we grabbed here in the clip, we're going to drag that over. Now we want to be holding our braid fairly tight so it doesn't slip out, and get all of that section that we grabbed into one hand, and then grab our brush and smooth it over. So here I have grabbed too much. It kind of needs to end here actually. So I'm going to section out that piece. I'm going to section out all of this actually, right up to here, because it's just too much drape. Yeah, that's better, because otherwise it'll droop a little too much and then it's not going to hold tight. This is where it gets a little tricky. Don't get frustrated if you have to do this a couple times. Just have lots of patience in smoothing it. And you want to do it now because it gets hard to smooth it later. Alright, now we're going to grab from the underside, but don't grab too much. Again, you're going to have to play with this to see how much and where to grab. I grabbed maybe an inch worth. Actually, that's probably a little bit high. Or low, I mean. So I'm going to drop a little bit so that we get a nice drape. We just added that piece in right here. So now we're going to bring the other side over, and then we're going to grab one of our next parted sections on the other side. That one's going off to that side, so we need to grab this side right there. And that's why the clips come super in handy. And remember, we need to stay towards the wig side, or towards the face side. So I'm going to grab another small section, and I'm going to start pushing the braid that way so that I get lots of drape. This section here needs to come on over. And that I'm going to split into two since we're reaching the bottom nape neck of the wig. Alright, now we have our 3 sections. We cross our next piece over. Now,
I'm holding it firm enough to not drop it, but loose enough that I can still get that drape going on. I'm going to pull at that to make it a little looser and drapier. Back to this piece of the braid, pulling it into the center. I'm actually going to grab just a small section of it. And as this last piece loops in, I'm going to grab this last section from the nape of the neck and pull it in. This is going to make sure that all of that hair that we added earlier that comes out is going to wrap around and be able to hide the nape of our neck. Alright, and so that's the last of the section, so I'm going to hold everything firm in my hand. Give it a brush out, and this is where a tight braid comes in. So all of this is nice and loose, but we want to be tight with this piece because this all gets locked down and gets wrapped up into the other side of the braid, so we don't want it coming out. And then I'm going to twist it to make sure that it can lay nicely along the nape of the neck. You're going to braid as far as you can before pieces start to fall out. So this piece is really thin, so I'm going to stop right there. And then our secret is zip ties. Get these clear ones so that you don't possibly see it. And then do it as tight as you possibly can. Then take some little cutters and snip it off. From there, we need to do something with this so that when we go to tuck it up in the other braid, it doesn't just flop. So I'm going to take a hairnet here, try and find a blonde one. I could only find brunette ones in the meantime, but it'll be okay. I'm just going to put it on, just kind of wrap it around until it creates like a little nub, like that. And then we're going to have excess hair tie. And so just keep wrapping it. And then you're going to take a little rubber band and just secure it down around the zip tie. And so now that's all bundled away, which will make it so much easier to deal with later. So now that half is done and it looks so pretty. Well, once again, we're going to start behind the ear. And when you find a wig, you want to make sure that it doesn't have a lot of layers. Like this little layer comes out a lot. So now we have this first top section that's going to feed in and over. And there we have our base braids, and you can't see any wefts. And then you can also still access both the clips. So next, you can either use one of these tools or your fingers very carefully, but don't have rings on for this next step. So you're going to decide which one you want to be your under braid and which one you want to be your over braid. This one is already naturally kind of going under, and this one's kind of naturally going over. I'm going to start with the under braid. You're going to choose a kind of high up spot in your braid. You're going to stick 2 fingers in, and without catching any of the fibers between both fingers, create a channel just under the braid. You're going to feel that it kind of naturally wants to part a certain way. And you're going to reach under, going to grab your little bundle, and with the help of your other hand, kind of feed it up. Now you want the braid to kind of land just under the bottom edge of the base cap. So there's the base cap, and here's the braid. So I'm just going to stop right about there. Then I'm going to take one of these twisty hairpins, and I'm going to go right about where both braids intersect, just after the tie, the zip tie, and I'm going to begin screwing the 2 braids together. And there we go. And that's going to lock it in really nicely. So I'm going to keep just shimming and adjusting until things hide how I like them. You don't want to put too much hardware in because it does show kind of easily, but I know I'm going to put a flower there, so that's fine. This section likes to come out as well, so I'm actually going to hide it right under there. And it's like she never existed. And so that's the base of it. I will show you locked off how to style the bangs, so that way Mr. Blackwell can go eat. So the beauty of doing this yoke with the wefts here for the micro braids is it's going to hide a lot of our sins. So we've got the 2 loops here. When you put it on, you can just lift this bottom braid and feel for the clasps. Push it in, there we go. And feel for the other one. And clip. And there we go. And if you're really worried, you can even put a little flower there, like this. I put my flowers on the twist pins, so that way they're not falling out. Just twist your flower in. From here, you can decorate your piece with flowers or the fairy lights. And I'm just going to shove that in there, and that hides that bobby pin. Unfortunately, all of my footage explaining how to do the bangs got deleted. However, they're not that hard, so I'm just going to kind of explain it and then do a slight walkthrough. So, for parting out your sections, my sections are about 3 fingers wide, and they go temple to temple, and it goes back about 3 inches from the hairline, or 3 fingers. So let's say I wanted to cut the bangs and they weren't this short and styled already. To figure out how much I need to cut, I would just loosely style it with my fingers, draping it into the formation that I kind of want. And I would know that right here is about where I want to cut it. So I'd do a marking line cut right there, chop that off, and then I would come through, brush it all up at like a 45, and just chop it, and that's going to give these nice layers that when it's all curled and styled, lay beautifully like that. Now these bangs I would leave a little bit longer so that they can get tucked into the side braid a little more. So once you have your bangs all styled, then you're going to put it into rollers like this. Once you have your pieces curled, and you're just going to tease the ever-loving shit out of it. Just really get in there and make an absolute mess of it, especially focusing at the root, right at the parts on each side. Once you have your wig teased within an inch of its life, then you're going to take your same teasing brush and you're going to lightly brush just the surface of the bang rat hot fire mess. And you're also going to start using your hands to shape it into place. I'm not digging in, I'm just going along the surface just to smooth it. You can see I'm smoothing it into my fingers to kind of hold where that curve is going to go. And I will brush this part out down here. And since they all got curled the same direction, they're going to lay nicely into our fingers. You can really just work that curl even more into the ends. And then I am going to use the brush very lightly just to kind of untease any layers where I can still see the ratting underneath. And the underside too, right where it starts to peek out. Then we take our got to be glued hairspray, freeze the parts that I'm liking already, and continue working on the parts that aren't totally there yet. The more you restyle your wigs, the more they just kind of hold that shape. Now you can see I just kind of tucked that braid into the beginning of the French braid, but you can also use one of these looper tools and stick it into the French braid like that. Same thing with this side. This area in here you can see is really teased up and ratted. I'm just going to rat it a little more. These less dense bangs, I like to really rat at the root a lot, really push that down in so that it holds that vertical even if I have to unbrush a lot of it. And then I like to pull this out a little bit so I get a little bit more draping along the front of the face to hide any possible hairline. One last thing you can do is you can take a ribbon and pin and stretch it across to hold that down, and then give everything a very gentle steam just to hold it. You don't want to leave the steam too long on any teased bits because then the hair will start to fall, but just a gentle steam to kind of hold everything in place. You can also use some clips, like some of these guys, or alligator clips,
to just kind of hold everything down and steam it. Just don't leave the steam too long, otherwise you'll get some little indents from where these clips are. And with that, our wig is ready. She's done! Let's try her on. As you guys know, I have a butt ton of hair, so let me give you a little 360 of how I put all my hair up and fit it under wigs. I do 2 French braids to the back, keeping the nape of the neck a little bit exposed, and then I twist them around the back of my head and secure them down with bobby pins. From there, I put on a wig cap just to keep everything protected, and any flyaways will get tamed. Sometimes I'll even put snap clips here at the corner of my head, but I don't know where those went, so we're just gonna make do. So just to lock it down, I'm gonna put 2 hairpins in here. So these are the hairpins that you get at Sally Beauty's. These are the ones that you order online. You can see that these have a ball. These will be much more comfortable for putting on this wig because these are gonna scrape against your head, whereas this is just going to glide. So I highly recommend getting these. Don't get these. These also bend out of shape really easily. These do not. So a lot of people online will flip their wig over and then put it on. You don't want to do that because you're going to mess up all of your styling. You can get away with it a little bit if you have a loose wig, but I still wouldn't recommend it because then it gets all tangled. So what you'll do, this is how we do it in theater. You're going to put it behind your head. You're going to pull it way forward. Get it settled in place. You're going to flip that out and hook it underneath your wig cap and into your braid. And that's going to act as security at the temples. Security, security. I'm going to pull the sideburn forward, get everything seated into place, and then pin the sideburn of the wig into the sideburn of my own head, and that's going to hold that nicely there. Now we go to the back with that other comb, fish it out, pull it down, and hook it into the back nape of our neck. And that right there is already feeling secure, but we need to attack the hairline. So you can still see my hairline here. I'm going to pull the sides of the wig cap down and push my hair up and in. Then we're going to take our hairpins and we're going to go away from our head, slide it along our skin, and then push it up along the back of our head. But I'm going to put it into the braid here. I'm going to feel around for the base cap of the wig. It's coming out right there. And then I'm just going to push it up and into my head. That's going to really like force that wig cap next to your head. So just those 2 right there have secured it pretty well. I might go back and do 2 more. And then I like to do 4 more. If my braids are right here, then I'll bury 2. I'll push everything forward and then push the pin back in to hook it. And then the last 2, I just do it kind of along here, again along my braid, down in. And that's it. I can whip my hair back and forth and feel good about it. Now it's time for the braid tail. Now, the one thing I do think I want to go back and change, I want to go back in and add another stitch right there just to close up that loop a little bit more, but it still functions really, really well. So the only hard part, if you don't have a hand, is to get the back button on. There we go. Here you can see there's the button, and one more. Even that alone is pretty good. I'm gonna separate the 2 braids and search for the hooks that we placed inside. And there we go. Ta-da! And it hides everything. Yay! As far as the cost goes, I'll have a full breakdown about that on my blog, which you can find a link to in the description down below. I do have one small issue though, and that is this. But that's not a problem with the wig, that's a problem with my bodice pattern. So I have actually updated it. So the problem is that you can see my bodice here is cut to be just under the wing bone at the back. And that is allowing the shoulders to droop, especially when you have the weight of the braid on it. So I've updated the neckline to have a higher back, and that's going to prevent the slipping that I'm getting here. I'm in the process of digitizing and getting this pattern all ready and graded so that you guys can have a digital download, because many of you have expressed interest in my pattern. So that is coming. I am going to update/alter this one to reflect the changes, but just know it's coming soon. I'm really happy with this, and I hope you guys find this tutorial helpful. Thank you so much for all of your support. If you want to support the channel more and get yourself a nice little goodie, I have my earrings up for sale on my website. You can follow that link in the description down below. I also have them in silver now, so if you're a silver girly, I got you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to unplug and go make something, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!